Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Top Voice Tuesday. It is May 7th already. I hope everyone enjoyed a nice Cinco de Mayo and May Day. I can't believe it's already May 7th, and excited to have with us today Rachel Lee. As you know, this show goes live every week. If you miss an episode, you can watch everything on my YouTube channel, Michael J. Lopez 9. Every episode is on there. It's filling up quick and really loving the conversations. If you're dialing in right now, please do jump into the chat. Let us know where you're dialing in from and leave a question. We're going to have a great conversation today with Rachel. So as we jump in, Rachel, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself. And, the conversation is about the content conundrum, right? This idea of authenticity and automation. There's an AI tool for everything now. So before we jump in, Rachel, please tell us a little bit about you, and most importantly, how did you get to the top of the Top Voice Mountain?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me today. Great to be with everyone. If you're watching live, definitely get those questions in, and just appreciate, as always, being invited for these opportunities. Rachel B. Lee. I am your branding lady boss. I'm your LinkedIn top voice, which is incredible. I worked at Microsoft. I worked at Gartner. I have an undergrad from UW, University of Wisconsin-Madison, an MBA from University of Texas, Macomb School of Business. And I have all of these amazing accolades that I'm just really humbled and proud of. And now I can call myself, a fempreneur, an entrepreneur, a business owner in the midst, in that career journey, as well as a stepmother and a mother and a dog mama. So I have all these titles and accolades, and I never would have thought that, though I could say all those things, a couple years ago in 2020, when I was working at Gartner at the time, and feeling kind of lost, and got the MBA, got the big corporate job on the corporate ladder, and thinking, this is it, right? Here's the path that I'm on, Michael. But that something inside felt off for me. And maybe if you're listening or watching today, you felt that, or you're in that moment where you're on the floor and you're crying and you feel disconnected from what your inner voice is, your truth, and what you're actually doing with your life. And it was in that moment that I realized I needed to make a big shift. I needed to unleash my voice in the most pure way for me, and that I had to leave the employee life to do that. And with that mission of, Rachel, you need to share your voice authentically, because it's literally eating you away, right? That in that moment, I found and became the Rachel B. Lee, right? I had the support from my husband, Joshua B. Lee, as well as other mentors and coaches and family, to give me the permission, really, Michael, the permission to, this is your life. Go for it. Do whatever you want, right? And I left corporate in June 2021. I have articles and videos of that moment of closing the computer, and joined forces with my husband, and founder of Standout Authority. And our entire mission is about that. It's about this idea that your voice, your specific voice, Michael, matters. You get to share it authentically. You get to focus on your personal brand, your career, who you want to be, how do you want to serve, how do you want to contribute. And that's what we do today at Standout Authority. We work with companies and business owners to focus on those individual voices. All that corporate marketing, branding, I've taken that knowledge to say, how do we actually lift up the executive voices, the CEOs, the business owners, the leaders. And in doing that, building their personal brands, using LinkedIn as a power platform to do that, we're going to see growth in brand awareness, strategic differentiation. We're going to see revenue growth, right? We're going to see all those things that marketers need to do. And it's going to empower the individuals. And so that's what I'm focused on today with Standout Authority.
Love it. We were just talking about this as we got on right before we went live about why going live is so fun, and what a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. I will say that I personally resonate with a lot of your journey. It wasn't 2020 for me, although I think we all had our moments of confusion and uncertainty, around that time because of what was happening in the world. But, for me, it was 2023. And I had been searching for meaning and purpose in a number of different companies and good places, right? You worked at some amazing companies. It's not about them, right? It was about you. And for those of you that are listening or watching this back, there's a great sort of philosopher, psychiatrist. His name is Dr. James Hollis. And I'm a big consumer of his material. And he writes about this moment in life, which is the sort of second half of life, which is what you're describing. And for most of us in the first half of life, we're searching for the goals that we think life is expecting of us, right? We're accomplishing the things that we think we should be chasing because what life wants from us. And that's a bit of a metaphoric term, but he says there's this point in most people's life where there's a shift. And you use that word, which I love, is what is wishing to be expressed through me to the rest of the world, right? And that becomes an important moment. And that's what you just described for us. And I would encourage people to look up his work. It's powerful. He's amazing. And your story really does fit that. I've had my own journey, and I hope everyone gets a chance to go through that metamorphosis in life. Just really, really beautiful. Let's dive in, because you talked about your voice and you said that many, many times. And the purpose of this conversation is automation versus authenticity. So look, like I said, there's an AI tool for everything. What's the biggest risk that we're facing in this time of balancing being authentic with the fact that more seems to be more, right? More automation, more volume. What risks are we balancing here in this moment?
Listen, I think content is becoming a commodity. Like it's becoming much more difficult to get in front of your audience, to break through with your audience. The baseline, like the frame where we were, that's out the door, crashed, burned. And honestly, I don't know where we're gonna be a year from now, right? Because we already have so OpenAI primarily, right? Although we know there's many different tools, democratized Gen AI and did it at a pace that was a couple of months.
Yeah.
Right? They reached, I think it's 100 million users in like a couple months or a year. It took like the internet to adopt like 16 years. Don't quote my exact stats, but I was at Microsoft event and they were saying that last week. And so we've been in this digital revolution, and we absolutely are not we have no understanding or awareness of what the impact is going to be. We don't. What we know today is that AI has now put this tool in front of a bunch of people's hands that said, "Oh, now I can create content really fast, right? Or I can come up with this presentation or whatever really, really fast." They don't build really in-depth personas. They just use whatever is spat out at them, right? It's like, "Oh, I'm, a coach in this industry. Write me a post on this topic." Like the prompt is super shitty. They haven't trained the GPT at all.
Yeah.
And so then if you're doing that, what's going to happen is, guess what? Every other person, just like you, which is 90% of people are doing it just like that, are going to have the same exact post. And so our threshold I talked about this in we had a fireside chat a couple of weeks ago, Michael, and I learned this. We're in a trust recession.
Yep.
And so content is a commodity. Many pieces of marketing are going to continue to be a commodity. And so I think, what does that really mean for us humans? Like, what does that really mean? Well, it means that you need to like show your face a whole lot more. I think it means that we're going to need, that's why real life meetups and conversations like are on the up and up and will continue to happen. You have a responsibility to fact check like you've never done before, not just fact checking the AI tool, which by the way, it hallucinates and gives incorrect information
all the time. Yeah.
Only as good as the data it has. So we have a massive responsibility here to be stewards of humanness and authenticity.
One of the things that we talk, I love that, and this idea that content is a commodity. I think we've said a couple times in this series in these episodes that up until recently, it was something like 90% of all LinkedIn posts came from like 5% of the accounts, right? It was a very small percentage, and folks like you and me and others, were part of that community. And we even have this conversation amongst ourselves as top voices, which is the thing that got you here. Someone said this the other day. I was talking to Michelle. She was on this. The thing that got you here isn't going to get you to the next step. And so this idea that more content is better, it really then floods the market with content. And to your point, the first risk is sort of commoditization. The second risk in that is, if we're all asking the same questions, we're going to be getting the same answers. And it's not just about the volume of information, it's about the sameness of information, right? Which then gets back to this really essential point that you made about humanness. And Raul was on last week and he talked about, right, the value of AI is that it frees you up to be a person and think creatively. How do we know when someone is leaning too hard on the AI engine for content generation? I don't know about you, but I can sort of spot it, right? How do we know that that's what's happening? How do we know that that's what we're reading? That's what we're engaging with? And I guess maybe, look, if it speaks to us, does it matter where it comes from?
I think that's the question. So let's assume that AI is part of every single piece of content, every single piece of marketing that you're receiving. And if it's not today, then it will be. So one, does it matter to you? I think that we all need to say it doesn't matter, because guess what? Artificial intelligence is not new. It's now become the cool, flashy word, but AI has been, in part of technology for decades.
Yeah.
The only reason it's getting its moment is because, again, of Gen AI and the pace in which people are adopting it. So it doesn't matter. Like, soon, once like the media and everybody like gets past this hype cycle, which is probably like another year, let's call it. Gartner talks a lot about those tech hype cycles and whatnot. It's not going to be like everything AI, right? It's just, this is a way of which we're doing life. And so we are going to adapt, Michael. We're going to adapt. And so I think what's going to be meaningful is, I think, more niche audiences. I am very proud that I reached over 20,000 followers, which is amazing. Great. Vanity metric. Cool. Right. I didn't pay for those folks. I've been consistently working it, posting 3 times a week, not over posting.
Yeah, that's great.
A monthly newsletter. And I'm networking and working it. And I did that in like 4 years with, intense, laborious effort. And so I think we just have to focus on real people. Who do you actually want to see their content? And if you're not sure if they're legit or not, then go set up a call with them, go to their webinar. Go, if right here, we're live right now.
Yeah.
I'm not AIing this right now.
Yeah, that's part of why I do this, is because
Right?
I think that there's a real value in understanding that these are conversations that are happening in real time. I love what you're talking about in terms of this curation of an environment and relationships. Look, I did a post the other day, I think it was last Friday. We've all fallen victim, myself included, of sort of chasing the algorithm, right? We even talk about it in our community, right? Like, the algorithms change. How do we get more? And I found myself in a place where I was like, I'm not doing the things that got me here, right? So, look, I got to be a top voice by posting once a week, but it was a thoughtful, written from me, my brain, not something else. Never one time did I put that in an engine. So I think it's a really interesting point. And there's a comment in the chat that I want to address. It's from Jeremy Grandstaff, who's a good friend of mine.
Hi, Jeremy.
He raises an interesting point, is that maybe AI is just reflecting the lack of authenticity in people, right? I mean, AI can only know what we tell it, right? And so, the number of people that he's meeting on LinkedIn whose posts and profiles maybe don't reflect who they are. Are we creating a larger credibility issue? And what does that do to trust? I'm interested in your perspective on this idea of, are we just mimicking a superficiality in the way that maybe the LinkedIn platform or us in showing up was already present before?
Hey, listen, 100%. I think that is the detriment of social media. Social media has sort of ruined real authenticity. The pendulum has swung so far one way. The original intent when Facebook came out, which is like there's been many, MySpace and many different sort of social media. But I think that social media is the problem here. Culture is the problem here, right? Photo shopping and all of these things. And for sure, AI is now putting a magnifying glass on it. And so, yes, all of us are masking in some way, which is why for me, it's about that personal branding. It's about, how do others see you and how do you see yourself? What the heck are you doing to put the magnifying mirror on yourself and to say, who am I? Who am I? What do I stand for? How do I want to contribute and be in service? And to not fake that. And so we can't do anything. I can't make you do that, right, Michael?
Yeah.
But what I can do is lead by example. In
Love it.
my vulnerability, and no AI can take a picture of me crying hysterically after my fourth canceled IVF transfer, right? And that post and that authenticity that I put out there and shared, using medication, crying, all that. In that moment, I supported other women and families. And in that moment, I was noticed for it and got featured in a Wall Street Journal article. But it wasn't about that.
Yeah.
It was about having this moment and saying, somebody else is feeling this. Nobody's talking about this in front of business professionals, right? Nobody's talking about this like in corporate. How can I be of service and break open this conversation? So that to me is what it's about. And so that's why we're seeing, I think, on LinkedIn, so much more posts with real faces, right? We're seeing like graphics and cares, like a lot of stuff like that shifting. Video obviously has become really on and popping. Although there's lots of AIs that create videos now. In fact, one of our clients has an amazing company, Delphi, that does it. It's amazing. So, Michael, I think it's a big conversation, but that's why we get to really choose who we connect with and make those relationships matter more than metrics or impressions or anything like that.
Yeah. You just said two things that I think are really important. And this is what Raul said last week before, was we get to choose, right? And I think so much of what we have maybe fallen, I don't want to say victim, but maybe fallen for in the AI world is this idea that I need to be a mass producer, right? That I need to be someone that is really generating volume, and that volume is better. But I get to choose how I leverage these tools. And I think what you're describing is it's, you're not saying it's not okay to use them. It's that it has to come from something from the heart, right? Something that people want to see, that I'm not alone. Somebody else is going through this. Somebody else is feeling this. I think that's really important. The second piece, and this is what I talk about in my business. Most people look at me and go, "Oh, you do change management, right?" I hate that term, but let's just go with it for a while. And another industry that's kind of fallen victim to some sameness. And what I tell my clients, and I think what you're describing is, you don't pay me to do what everyone else does. You pay me for high leverage moments, right? You pay me for that 5-minute interaction or that 30-minute conversation that shifts another human being in their perspective, and that understands how to take the moment and match it with the method or the tool, and help somebody move in a direction that maybe they've never moved before. And I think what's so hard about that, not just the skill of that, but that only happens every once in a while, right? And so we feel better when we're generating more, right? Do more, say more, video more. But the truth is, what people remember are high leverage moments. I'm curious how that shows up in the work that you do, because that's part of standing out, right?
About high leverage moments?
Yeah, these special moments where, Mark Fuentes said this, right? I'd rather be first to mind than first to market. And
Yeah.
to me, that's such a compelling way of thinking about, how do we do that? How do we stay in our shoes as content people and not fall victim to this more is better mentality, but think about, those small moments of really high impact, because that's, I think, where the magic happens.
Well, I'm not a content person. Like I'm not fine. You could call me a creator, content creator. Yes, because that's a vehicle that I'm using to share this high leverage capability that I have, to speak in your terms. I think that capability, what you're talking about, of being able to actually communicate IRL and is an incredible and undervalued skill. Communication. Here are the things that I think are going to be so freaking important. And I'm not seeing them in Gen Z, because I do guest lecturing and I still support students, and not just students, right? Just think about just Gen Z, right?
Yep.
It's like you do was hiring for somebody. So I have several different pieces of that interview process. One of them is a submission for a video, 3-minute video. I could tell that they put it into AI, and I could tell that they're reading off. Is that good or bad? Right. How are we going to get people to really communicate and hone in on some of these skills that no content, nobody can fake any of this stuff. Like, there are going to be a lot of jobs that go away, things that are like the baseline jobs, right? Where like a lot of the research analysts, a lot of things that, honestly, coding will be going away. There's a whole lot on that too. But the consciousness that you're talking about, so far, computers aren't there. What will we say in 10 years with quantum? And there are a lot of interesting things going on. Will there be Westworld robots honestly, probably, right? Will it be in my lifetime or yours? I don't know. But regardless, that the system, our brain, which you're talking about, these high leverage, the way we process based off of all of our sensories, our past experiences, and how we learn. Right now, computers and AI can't do that. And so content is just one way, in a small way, daily, weekly, whatever, that we're getting ourselves online and visible because we need to. We need to. Like, this is just the way shit gets done.
Yep.
You know, I was with a group yesterday, more like the legal, financial, and they're, you know, all referral-based business. And I'm like, it's not how the world is run and will continue to run. You can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think I think the skills that you and I both have are now more valuable than ever before. So we actually really need to ignite that in the way in which we communicate online, but also in how we hire and how we train.
Yeah. Well, I certainly love that. And I'm going to give a good plug for a good, solid liberal arts education. You know, we used to make fun of those things, but it's kind of trendy these days. So, good for learning how to write and, you know, how to communicate. We're coming up to the end, Rachel, and I want to just take this conversation and sort of move it into some big takeaways. And one of the things that I think I want to add before you help us close is this idea that I think one of the things you're describing is an important shift in skill. Is, you know, it used to be that the people that got ahead were the ones that had all the answers. And I think now what we're learning is the people that get ahead are the ones that can ask better questions. And
Ooh, I love
and
that.
for me, you know, that's really been an interesting experience of how do I phrase something in a way that allows me to really get at the heart, which is problem finding, right? And that's what we're describing. It, you know, and so many consultants, particularly in my world, they have a solution. Like they got a 5-step process, 4-step process, right? I got my mousetrap and I'm a solution looking for a problem. And people ask me, what do you do? And I'm like, I don't know. Well, what's your problem? Right. And that's a different conversation. So as we close, what are the 3 things that when we talk about this conundrum of automation or authenticity, what are the 3 things you want people to really take away from this conversation, Rachel?
Yeah. I mean, one, you have to use it. You have to use it, whether you like it or this or that. And last week I was at the Ultimate Partner Experience. I was part of with all the Microsoft partner ecosystem and listening in there. And they said you need to be customer zero. And that was a great term. I thought customer zero. I hadn't heard that yet. So I don't want to hear from anybody, oh, this AI or whatever, until you're in it and you're using it. Then you got nothing to say. Okay. You got nothing to say. You get a seat in the room when you use it. Okay. So be customer zero. I would say 2, branding, right? Which means what do I have to say that contributes
Mm.
one person? And that means understanding what is my unique value proposition, right? And what are my unique skills? What are the things that I uniquely bring to the table? My differentiation, never been more important today than before.
Yep.
I think just branding in general, also at a company level, but I am the most passionate about personal branding. And then I would say 3 is authenticity is vulnerability.
Mm.
And so we're very scared to share what we're really feeling or experiencing. And your opportunities lie in that vulnerability. And it doesn't mean that it needs to be crying and taking a picture, right? Like me. It doesn't have to even be online. It means in the conversations with our kids when we're not feeling okay, right? It means asking for support, which we all need now more than ever, right? That vulnerability in our relationships will create a flywheel of opportunity. And when you do that, you'll feel authentic. And that authenticity will then ripple out into whatever you decide to do, posting or coaching or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, Rachel. What a great summary. And I'll add, you know, my book is right behind me. And one of the things I write about in my book Change is no 2 brains on planet Earth are ever or will ever be the same. It's impossible. And so share your unique brain with the world. It's a gift. It's a joy. It's scary. It's all of those wonderful things wrapped up into one. And I just love that you've inspired us to think about that, and not fall for the easy way, right? Don't just create more to create more. Create something that's meaningful, and that's just such an important reminder. You get your bonus question, and I think it's perfect in the way that this has come out, because I think we're
That was
talking.
the question. Okay,
Yeah.
here we go. Bonus question. Here we
Yeah,
go.
no. So, would you rather go into education and teach, or go into politics?
Oh God, education. I already guest lecture and like have a desire to be an
That's easy.
associate
That's easy. I mean,
professor.
politics needs some authenticity these days, I guess you could argue. It's in fitting with the conversation, but that's great that you're teaching and mentoring young people. That's really, really wonderful. Keep doing that for forever. That's a gift.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate you, Michael, and everybody that listened in today.
Yes, thank you very much for everyone dialing in, and for dialing in on a Wednesday after you were sick. Rachel, thank you for powering through with whatever's going around. Again, Michael J. Lopez 9 on YouTube to watch this episode back and any other episode. And please go subscribe to my newsletter on my website, Michael J. Lopez Coach. We take this conversation, I match it with insights from my book, and provide other resources for everyone. Thank you for dialing in and being part of the Top Voice community. Thank you again, Rachel. Have a wonderful day, everyone. We'll see you next time.